I'm going to show you how I made this clay llama for Valentine's Day. Start with 2 balls of white clay, then add a little extra clay to the chest. Blend it with your clay tools and fingers. Get it all patted down until it's nice and smooth and resembles a body and neck. It can take a little time, but it gets smoother as it warms up in your hands. Next, I'll work on the head. I like to start with a shape that resembles a giant tic-tac, then give it more of a pointy slope. Once you get the head done, put it on the body and check the balance. You'll want to set it down, and if it falls over, smush it till it's more balanced and can sit on its own. Now I'm making the legs from a rolled out piece of white clay. Cut it into 4 segments, keeping them as even as possible. You might need to roll them a little bit after cutting because they tend to get a little squished. Add a little bit of gray clay on the bottom to resemble hooves. I should have added little pins through each one of the legs to attach it to the body, but I just forgot. So I actually go in a little bit later and I add some of the liquid Sculpey all around the legs for extra structural integrity. Once she can stand on her own, I give her a little floofy tail. Then I roll out about 30 white balls and give her a little llama hairdo. This took a hot minute, so we'll just fast forward through this and then move on to the ears, but I definitely suggest rolling out more white balls than you think you'll need. For the ears, I rolled out a piece of white clay that's about the size of a tic-tac and a smaller piece of pink clay. I pressed those together and then used my ball tool to make a curve. I press and blend the ear a little bit with my fingers, and I take a ball off of the head, place the ear right in there with my sculpting tool, and do the same thing on the other side. Then I notice she's kind of looking like a lamb, but I'm just going to move on with this and hope she turns into a llama at some point. And then I wanted to give her hair a little bit of texture, so I used a coffee stirring straw and just started pressing in all of those circles, and it started to look like curls. Once she's all textured up, I place a pin in her head so that she can be attached to her body later. Then I bake her at 250 for about 10 or 15 minutes. She'll be baking again later, so I don't worry too much about the time. Then I place her on one of the little structures I made for all my clay dolls to go into the oven. While the head is baking, I'll use my silicone tool to draw in where the blanket's going to go on the llama's back. Then I'm going to use the coffee stir straw again to make the llama's fur. I found that this makes kind of a fun, unique pattern all over the body. I'm sure I'm not the first one to think of this technique, but it's the first time I've ever used it. So I'm going to show you how it comes together on half the body so you can just see how quickly and easily it can make that really fur-like appearance. When I'm done making these ruffles all over its body, I put it in the oven for about 10 minutes so that I don't press them down when I'm working on the blanket next. And I've used this straw many times. If I can't get the clay out of the end, I just cut off a tiny piece and then I can use it again. And then I'm ready to put this in the oven, but don't forget the tail. I add a little bit of texture to the tail and then I put it in the oven. Then I'm going to give her a crown of flowers. So I take a little ball and I separate it into 4 different sections with a very dull knife. I use the ball tool to make each petal, and then I use my silicone tool to separate the petals and make sure that they have their own little structure. I'll add a little bit of yellow to the center, and since her head has already baked, I add a drop of liquid Sculpey to her head before I place the flowers. I add liquid Sculpey every time because the flowers will just fall off if you try to bake them on clay that's already been in the oven. And I guess I wasn't recording it when I added a bunch of little round balls behind the flowers, but that really did add a lot to the crown, and you can see that in the end results. And now the llama is out of the oven, so I'm making trim for the blanket. I'll add a little liquid Sculpey to my guides and snake around that trim. Once I've got it how I like it, I will trim off the excess and then pat it down to make sure it's not going anywhere. Then I'll add a little more liquid Sculpey around the blanket to add some pastel decorations. I still have some of those pastel balls, so I tap them into place all around the blanket on both sides, and I think it's looking more and more like an alpaca or a llama. I wanted to give her a scarf, so I've already added a ring around her neck, and then I've cut a few little scarf shapes, and I'm going to put the smaller one down first and then the bigger one and give it a little curl at the end. For her nose, I've cut a triangle of gray and added some liquid Sculpey to her face since it's already been baked. And then for her eyes, I've rolled out very thin pieces of black. And then with the liquid Sculpey, you can kind of shape them when they're on the face. Once I had the face how I liked it, I gave it a bake and then it was onto the blanket. The body has been baked for about 5 minutes so that the decorations and the border of the blanket wouldn't fall off. That made it very easy to fill in the pink clay. Just add some liquid Sculpey and it will stick. I added a little too much pink clay, and so I had to shave some of it off, and then I just continued to blend until it worked. And then it was at this point that I realized she was going to be a Valentine's Day llama. So I made some hearts and I put them on both sides. And now that she's all baked up, I put her lamb head on her little llama body with her alpaca scarf, and I'm thinking she's looking pretty good. I have plans to put her in a Valentine's Day garden, and so in my universe, llamas look like this. And in your universe, they might look a little more llama-y, but I had fun, and I'm thanking you for watching this video and joining me on my clay creation adventure. And you know, Llama would love a thumbs up or a subscribe or even a comment before she scoots on out of here. Scoot, 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 scoot.